Hello everyone, this is Terry with Futures.io, and as always, I would like to thank you for joining us today. It is my pleasure to welcome back Brett Barrett from NinjaTrader for our 400th webinar event at FIO. Today's webinar is Technical Analysis Workshop. As it is a special webinar event, NinjaTrader has graciously provided 3 prizes to be given out. There will be 3 questions from topics covered today, so pay close attention for your chance to win at the end of the webinar. Throughout the webinar, if you have a question, please remember to type them into the questions box. We'll do our best to answer them at the end of the event. This webinar will be recorded and posted on the Futures.io website within 24 to 48 hours. If you watch it afterwards on YouTube, please do us a favor and give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the webinar. And as always, please feel free to share, comment, subscribe to our channel. It really helps us a lot. For trading news, events, and information, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter using @Futures.io. And now, without further delay, I'll hand it over to Brett, and you will get the pop-up to share your screen again.
Awesome. Yeah, looks like I got it.
All right,
thanks, Terry.
It's all yours.
All right, cool. All right. Thanks again for having me in the webinar room, guys. My name's Brett Barrett, and I'm the Director of Product Management here at NinjaTrader. And I've been on the team for 10 plus years, and to see 400 events here at Futures.io, I mean, growing trading communities, getting the word out there of how trading, trading education, technical analysis, building communities and things like that, just to see all that kind of build up around, day trading, swing trading, just getting more and more, spreading the word more and more on just the various things that you can do with trading. It's been really cool to see the forum just grow up, from the period when it was Big Mike's forum and then rebranded to Futures.io. So 400 events, that's no small thing. So congratulations to the Futures.io community. You guys deserve it. Today's webinar is going to be a technical analysis workshop. I'm going to go through just some of the things that I personally do from a technical analysis perspective. And kind of take you through that and hope you pick up a few things along the way that maybe you don't know. This webinar, I'll be sure to cover things from the perspective of a new user, and also that of a user that maybe has been using NinjaTrader for a while, but maybe wants to learn a bit more or pick up a trick or a tip or two. So today we're going to go through various things. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. It's the technical analysis workshop. We're going to go through, create various technical analysis techniques such as indicator on indicator and how you do that within NinjaTrader. We're going to work with some multi-time frame chart setups so you can kind of get an idea of what you can do there. We're going to set up a market analyzer and set up some filter conditions based on the stochastics indicator. We're going to also look into our candlestick and trend line detection indicators. Trend line detection is something we added a few months back, as it was just a popular indicator that our CE, that the original founder of NinjaTrader wrote himself and has been on the forums for some time, and it just got enough use and we decided to add it natively to the product. So that's the trend line detection tool. Scale justification overlay and layer multiple indicators on a chart. So we'll talk a little bit about how you can layer stuff, and that gets into forecasting, where we've got the ability to do displacement on things to kind of show things in the plotted indicator values into the future. And then finally, some stuff that I personally use and I call them market breadth and indices setups, stuff that unless is pretty common to do, but for maybe if you're new, you may not know exactly how to set up those chart configurations. So I'll take you through a few indicator setups. We're just gonna nerd out here on technical analysis. Feel free to ask questions as we go through the webinar. We'll stop. I don't know if we'll stop kind of halfway through and see what questions we have, or depending just on how many questions there are. Maybe we do that, or maybe we wait till the end. We'll see how it goes. And appreciate everyone attending the webinar. All right, and I do want to get into it, but I do need to quickly read these, so bear with me. The risk of loss in trading can be substantial regardless whether it's security, futures, contracts, or foreign exchange. You should therefore carefully consider whether such trading is suitable for you in light of circumstances and financial resources. You may sustain a total loss of the funds that you deposit with your broker to establish or maintain a position in the commodity, futures, or foreign exchange markets, and you may incur losses beyond these amounts. You can learn more about these risks by inquiring with your broker directly. And finally, this presentation is brought to you by NinjaTrader LLC, a software development company which owns and supports NinjaTrader trading platform. NinjaTrader LLC is an affiliated company to this NinjaTrader brokerage. This presentation is for informational purposes only and is not solicitation or recommendation to buy or sell any security, future, or foreign exchange contract. Any questions that are not related to NinjaTrader trading platform should be sent to your brokerage firm directly. Okay, cool. All right, so everybody should see the NinjaTrader trading platform on your screen. Here I've got just a basic configuration. I've got the NinjaTrader control center up in the top left. I've got charts on the right, and I've got a market analyzer here on the bottom left, which is our version of souped up quotes, if you will. There's a lot more you can do with the market analyzer. Today we're going to start with kind of some technical analysis techniques, which is indicator on indicator. This is a pretty useful technique. It can get pretty far in the weeds, meaning the actual number of combinations you can do here with indicator on indicator is quite large. I mean, the solution scope here on how many things you can chain, understanding what it is you're achieving when you chain two things together. It's a very in-depth topic, but there are some simple use cases and stuff that I actually like to set up pretty commonly. One of those being, we do have, let's say you want to add the volume indicator to the chart. So I'm going to right click on the chart and went to indicators. And I'm going to use the V key on my keyboard here to get down to volume, V-O-L. And if I add this to the chart here, I'll go ahead and click apply. I get my volume, as we expect, on the chart. So now, let's say I want to go deeper. So I want to have a simple moving average of the volume in this panel shared. So we actually already have that. It's called the volume MA. And it's a separate indicator, volume moving average. You can click on it, add it to the chart. As I click OK, it actually takes up another panel down below, which is inefficient. We want to save space. Space is, real estate is always at a premium. So what I'll do is I'll left click on the indicator, select it, and then I'll drag it up to this second panel up here and let go. And as I do that, this is now sharing the same scale. You can tell that is the case because we have one scale here on the right, and we've got both plot values here, and we can see our volume moving average. So that's all fine and dandy. We can do all that out of the box, no problem. Now let's take it up a notch. Maybe the simple moving average is too simple for you. So what we can do is maybe we want to use an exponential moving average on the volume. Well, if I go right click on indicators, go look for volume exponential moving average, it's not going to be there. And so what we need to do is we need to adopt the indicator on indicator thinking now. So what we're going to do is we're going to take, we want an EMA. So that's an exponential moving average. So I'm going to go EMA. Okay, I'm going to double click on it to select and add it. And then here, where we do the indicator on indicator magic is we can configure our indicator here, but there's a data series, what's called the input series. So anytime you hear the word series, that's just it's an array of values or time values. So it's, a series is a set of indicator values per bar. Maybe it's a set of close prices per bar, high prices per bar, low, that's a series, okay? And so just think per bar when you're thinking series. And if I click here to edit the input of this indicator, I've got the input series dialog where I can make a few selections. On the left-hand side, I can either select any bars on the chart, of which I just have one, which is my 5-minute ES chart. If I go to price type here, I can select different price values of that input series. So I can do close, high, low, medium, open, typical, or weighted. So that's interesting, and I'll come back to that. But let's say I want to go back to my example. I want to do this on a volume indicator. So I expand open indicators. I now can pick any indicator I'd like. It does not have to be on the chart. In fact, it will run a secondary series behind the scenes just for this indicator. So now we want to go find the volume indicator. I'm going to press V. Here's volume. And I'm going to click OK. So now I get my text here, which says that it's running on a volume indicator, which is running on the ES 1220 5-minute chart. So I simply click OK. And now I've got this EMA, which is running on volume. And since it's the volume number here, it's just way out of scale. So it's made my bars nice and small. This is why I've got all these little dashes here, is that I decided I didn't change the panel before I clicked OK. I just threw it on the primary panel, which is where an EMA usually goes. And this is what I've got. So now to fix this, now you could do it the manual way, which is double clicking. And in the settings here, there's going to be a panel setting here where it says same as input series. You could come down here and set that to either the first panel or the second panel. So setting the second panel would fix the problem, but I'm going to cancel. What I prefer to do is just select it again, drag it down below, let it go. So here now I've got an exponential moving average running on volume. And you can combo this with virtually any indicator set you want. You want to run an EMA on top of a stochastics. You want to run basically any combination that you want to run. I mean, if you even want to do something like, for example, average true range, and then combo that up with throwing it through an Arun oscillator, for example. I mean, you could get crazy with combinations you want to do here. And you definitely have to reason about what you're getting when you do this, because with technical analysis, it's just math, honestly. And you're just looking at various maths that you can apply on the data that everybody else has and try to draw some conclusions and point out some things that might help you influence your trading decisions. And when we're looking at technical analysis, adding this on here is definitely one way to expand, especially with combos such as moving averages, smoothing out values. You can even add noise to values, things like that. So this is indicator on indicator workflow. The other thing we talked a little bit about was the scale justification. So when we're working with indicators, and you can see I've applied multiple indicators on the single panel here, there's actually a couple ways that I can interact with these indicators. And let me show you that to you now. So as I select this second indicator on this panel here, I've got the ability to left click and drag and move my mouse over here to the left side of the chart and let go. If I do that, you'll see I get a secondary scale here on the left side, and that's called left scale justification. So we end up having our volume with is blue plot with a blue marker here on the right, and we've got orange with an orange plot on the left. These two are independent, so I can grab the scale, left click and drag, move it around, scale it up and down. If I wanted to kind of compact this view by normalizing it, so now I'm not constrained to being on the same scale, I could come in here, custom fit this EMA to kind of be fully expanded in the range here, And then I can more easily see the dips and valleys as what's going on there. Now, relatively, they're no longer relative because they are on different scales. But you still get just a better view of the data. And if you wanted to, you could even hold down Control and drag up and down and kind of bring that lower, kind of blow it up some more, do something like this, you know, kind of custom fit the data. So that way you get kind of bigger swings and can see more differences in that EMA over what you had before. So scale justification is one way, and I'll show you a couple more tricks with scale justification, but if you ever see a scale on the left-hand side with a plot, that means you've got a left scale justification. And if I want to bring that back over to the right-hand side, left click and drag, put my mouse over here on the right side of the chart, let go, that'll re-add it back to that same scale. So scale justification, just another tool in the toolbox. There's actually a third level of scale justification. It's called overlay, and I may talk about that here in a little bit, but it basically forces itself to have no scale and just min-max itself over the top. Think of it like, you know, back in the old days, at least for me, back in school, the teacher had a projector with, you know, the lamp, and they would put the clear sheets of paper over the projector and draw over it. So that's an overlay. And again, everything you're doing by mouse is adjustable in the properties. So if I go back, double click, left mouse click on the indicator, there is a property here called scale justification where it's got that right, left, and overlay, which I was talking about, which I can just go ahead and set, which basically did the same thing I did earlier by just expanding it out, but I did it by hand, and I kind of had that left scale eating up space over here, which I may or may not want. Scale justification of overlay does the same thing. So I'll go ahead and set that back on right scale justification. All right. So let's get into let's add some more complexity. So we're always working with different time frames with our charts. Typically, you might set up a workspace where you might have enough screen real estate. Maybe you've got, you know, a few monitors, maybe where you can separate it out, or maybe you don't. And a common use case is you can add everything all into a single chart if you'd like. And a quick and easy way to do that is there's a hotkey, which I recommend everyone just kind of start getting used to. You'll greatly speed up your NinjaTrader use by learning how to do this, which is just by typing on the chart. So if I just type on the chart, I just change the chart instrument. So if I go ahead and type in NQ 12-20, press enter, it's now going to change the instrument to the NQ. However, what if I want to see both the NQ and the ES together? What I'll do in this case is I'll hit the plus button. So the plus, that's the key. Plus means add. Type in ES space 12-20, enter. And now I just added the secondary data series of the ES 12-20. You can do a lot of more things with this, and I'll cover a little bit more, but you can even do things like, if I was to remove this, let's say we have here a 5-minute chart. Let's say I wanted a 60-minute chart of the NQ. I can now type in, now, in case you don't know, for those of you that maybe don't know, I could just change to it by just typing 60M. This means switch to a 60-minute chart. So that'll switch me over to a 60-minute. Now let's say I want to go back to a 5-minute, and you can see where it starts to get fast because I can just quickly type in 6M, enter, 5M, enter. I can quickly switch to whatever time frame I want, 10-minute, whatever I need. If I want to go to a daily bar, that's 1D, as in day, 1D. If I want to go to a tick chart, that's a 144T, T for tick, enter. That'll switch me to a tick chart, for example. And so this really unlocks a lot of functionality. And now if I want to now add in, let's say, add additional series, or add additional time frame. So let's say I want to add to this 144 tick, I want to add a 288 tick. So now I can hit the plus button again. Same thing. So 288 T, enter. And now I just added a 288 tick chart. So getting back to where I want. So now I can actually do some, let's say, multi-series stuff. So let's go back to my basic 5-minute example. So I've got the NQ here. And let me actually switch back to the ES 1220. And let's say I want to compare this against crude for just for old time's sake. So we'll go, let's see, crude. $12.20, okay, and then plus ES 12.20. Okay, so now I've got both series on my chart, and now what I can do is just drag it on up, and as I do that, it's going to be hard to see the difference between the two. So I've got a right axis series, I've got a left axis series, of which I can start to compare, but it's hard to do so unless I change something up. So this is where I'll double click. And a couple things you can do is just changing the color, for example, or what I'll sometimes do is just switch from candlestick to something like, we can just play around with it, see what looks good. Sometimes mountain will work, or you can do line on close, which will just be a basic line, or you can switch it up and do something like, let's say an open close or open high low close. But if I just do a line on close here, make that gray, and then I can come over here. I can do another line on close if I wanted to. Make this, I don't know what, let's just say line. And so now I can start to get into some correlation charting. Now, these are both on independent scales. This is where overlay scale can sometimes be helpful, which it basically is already in an overlay scale. But again, just the same thing with indicators. There's scale justification. You can do overlay as well. That'll get rid of that left side so you don't have that over there. And this will basically line up the highs and lows of both series and overlay them. And if I look to see what I set for green, green is the CL. So I can kind of see how the price impact of crude going up may or may not be correlated with the price impact of ES, which I don't really see too much going on here right now, which is kind of expected right now, but you get the picture. So that's just one way for multi-series. The other thing you can do is you can do some interesting stuff with, let's say, layering different chart types together. So what I'll do is kind of reset my chart here. I'll go back to my candlesticks here. Okay. And you can even multi-layer multiple time frames together. So I'm on a 5-minute chart here. Maybe I want to go to, let's go to a 1 minute to make it even more clear. And we'll scrunch this up here. And then what I'll do is I'll add in a 60-minute. So 60-minute plus 60-minute. Okay. And then what I'll do is I'll change these 60-minute bars, double clicking on them. I'm going to go to a, let's see here, we're going to go to a box. I'll show you what that looks like. It's just a big old box around the high and low. And in fact, if I layer these two together, you'll see that one is below the other. And I can fix that by changing my scale. So if I hold down the shift button and scroll up or down, you can see here it says level 1 of 2, 2 of 2. If I scroll that, I now push this above. And I can kind of see, here's my 60-minute bar range. I can see this was an up bar for a 60-minute bar. I can kind of see the path it took inside that bar. And it kind of, I can combo up multiple time frames here. And if this is too much, we can change the colors of the candlesticks to be a different color, which will make it easier to see. Or we can, let's say, turn off the backgrounds of the boxes here. So I'll do it for both, actually. So now I just have basically a line. I could change the line as well for up bars versus down bars, but the point is you can combo in multiple time frames using multiple candlestick styles, or chart styles, I should say, and kind of expose more info to you, which that's the name of the game with technical analysis, is just exposing up the info that will help you make decisions. Okay, so we'll remove that. We'll go back to the 1-minute example. All right. So that's multi-time frame chart setups, and I showed you one way to do that by using the what I consider to be the simple way, which is just typing on the keyboard, incredibly fast when you get used to it. But again, everything's got an analog. If you right-click on the chart, go to Data Series, you can simply select a new instrument here, add it to the chart, we get a new instrument. So everything that I just did can be done through the menus as well. Okay. All right. So there becomes a time when we want to start bringing in the market analyzer. So I'll bring that in on the left-hand side. I say this in every webinar, but I always link my market analyzer with the instrument link up here in the top right. These work as channels. So you've got red channel up in the top right, red on this chart as well. How that works is just by simply selecting an instrument in the market analyzer here, it sends it across the instrument link of that same channel to any charts on that channel. So I can quickly flip through my markets just by using the down arrow key or clicking on the instruments that I may be keeping a close eye on in my market analyzer. Market analyzer, you can add instruments to it just again by typing. Which, again, if you just start typing, you can then pick your instruments, add them on, or by instrument list by right-clicking, add instruments, and then here, in my case, I just went to the futures instrument list. I clicked select all to add them all onto my market analyzer, which the futures instrument list pretty much covers the most popular futures instruments across the board. So usually a good thing to do. And this is my default look of a market analyzer. And let's keep going with the technical analysis theme. So everybody with technical analysis usually gets indoctrinated towards, let's say, stochastics. Everybody tries out a stochastics indicator, overbought, oversold indicator, which if I right click on the chart, go indicators, go down to stochastics, I'll add it to the chart. So if you are going to start looking at these technical analysis signals on overbought and oversold conditions, you could do that by hand. So you could go through, even with the instrument link, it gets pretty fast, but it's going to get tedious. So you can go through, just down arrow through, take a look, go through instrument by instrument, take a look, see what your instruments are. Okay, this is kind of trending up out of oversold. You know, and you can kind of go through that. Or what you could do is what I'll do here is I'll actually right click here on my tab and I'll go duplicate a new tab. This gives me an exact duplicate of what I just had with all my instruments. And for clarity, so you get an idea what I'll do, I'll even right click on the tab and I'll go rename. And I'll call this stochastics over sold. Click OK. And then what I'll do is right click on the market analyzer, go to columns, where I can configure my columns. Most underused column is going to be the indicator column, and happens to be the most complex column in the product. And it's complex because we can select any indicator we want. So now we can go down to stochastics, select it. And let's say we want the plot D or K, doesn't much matter. We'll just keep it on defaults. Same default settings. We're on a 1 minute. And which is important to go through your settings here and make sure it's on the right chart style you're looking for, or bar type you're looking for, and that you're loading the amount of data that you need. In this case, we're only doing a 7 and 14 period stochastic, so 2 days of data is going to be fine. And then I'll just click OK. This will add my indicator column in. It'll load all the data for every single instrument. It'll build a bar series in memory, and it will then calculate the stochastics value, throw it on my market analyzer column. So now I can see the stochastics value of every single indicator in my market analyzer. So now let's take it a step further. Now what I can do is I'll go to columns, and what I can do is set up filter conditions. So remember, I named this tab stochastics oversold. So oversold, I will define as any instrument that has a value below 20. So they've got these kind of overbought and oversold lines on stochastics, whereby overbought is above 80 and oversold is below 20. So I want to express that condition. In the market analyzer, they're called filter conditions. We can do sell conditions as well, but I'll set up a filter condition for today. And again, we'll go through and we'll set up the filter condition. Now it says, the trick here is to read this. It says hide row if value equals 0. So we're setting up a condition whereby we want it hidden based on our condition. So we want to hide if it's greater or equal to, let's just do greater actually, a value of 20. So this is going to hide it if it's greater than 20. And I'll go ahead and click OK. And it will recalculate those stochastics. And it'll start doing that. Now, yours may or may not do that right away. Mine's starting to show everything with low stochastics values. And it's hidden those rows that don't apply to my filter condition. So what I can do is turn on and off the row filtering. If I right click, there's an auto sort and a row filter. Auto sort simply means on the market analyzer, if I was to sort by stochastics, it does that one-time sort. If auto sort is off, then it won't continually make sure that as these numbers change, this list remains sorted correctly. You can turn that on and off, and same with row filter. You can turn on and off row filter. So as I turn that off, I now get all my rows back. So what I'll do is go through, set up a row filter, turn it on. Now I've got my row filter on for stochastics values less than 20. So here's all my oversold stochastics indicators. I'll right click on that, duplicate to new tab. I'll rename it stochastics overbought. Okay. And I'll set up the inverse of that condition by going into the columns, go into my stochastics column, back down to my filter condition, and this time I'll set less 80. So hide the value if it's less than 80. Click OK. Click OK. So here I've got my list of overbought based on the stochastics and my list of oversold based on my stochastics. And that just makes it much easier to do some kind of broad market technical analysis, filtering and scanning. So lots of combinations you can do there, lots of ways you can set it up. But this is just one way that I use the software. And you can even get a little bit more tricky with alerts and stuff like that. I'm taking a look at how our time is looking. We've got about 20 minutes left in the webinar before I definitely want to do a stop and make sure I spend some time answering questions. So let's go ahead and move on. I'll come back to it if we have time. So let's move on to the next thing, which is an important part of technical analysis is going to be, support and resistance zones. And you can do that by hand. There's all sorts of ideas and things that you can do to define support and resistance. One of those is going to be the idea of trend lines. And you can do that all by hand. So I can look at an individual chart. I can look at this. I can go to my drawing objects. I can select my ray. I can take this high here, connect it with this high, and just kind of create my trend lines here. And I can keep doing that for each one. So high to high, I'll hit that one there, and then I'll go down. I'll keep going. So here's another high to, let's do this one, another high to another high. So here I've kind of set up 3 resistance zones based off of just trend lines I'm drawing on a 1-minute chart. Another way you could do it is using the trend line indicator. So this is just another indicator, which is in the product. That's called trend lines. And I want to talk a little bit about this because what you're going to be using here is basically auto trend line detection. And it's going to automatically detect trend lines based on those swing highs and swing lows. But it's important, and the key factor here is going to be our strength value here, which the strength value just means how many bars does that swing high need to be validated as a swing high. So with a strength of 5, that's 5 bars distance it needs. So 2 on each side, including its 1, to generate that single point as a swing high or a swing low. If you want to have swing highs and swing lows that are more, let's say, defined on the chart, you want to increase that strength up. If you want to have a lot of lines with minor swing highs and swing lows, then you want strength to be lower. It's all relative based on the chart you're on. There's no one-size-fit-all number here. A good strength on something like a 233 tick chart will not be a good strength on something like a 1-day chart. So you're always going to have to play with the strength number here. And the other thing you want is, do you want old trend lines or not? So let me just click apply here with the current default settings here. I'll click apply. And what I get here is one little old trend line here, which is the last active trend that it detected on the chart, which is this swing high to this swing high here. Now, this is where the strength number comes into effect, because you might say, okay, this really wasn't a swing high to me, although technically it was since it had that 5-bar strength, but maybe I want a little bit more strength. So now if I come in here and set strength to 10, for example, and again, you just have to keep working with it, but here we go, a strength of 10. Now I've connected these last 2 swing highs are now connected with a trend line and drawn automatically on the chart. So this will by default just show the last active trend line that it detected. So here we have 2 swing highs, it's drawn that on the chart, and we can see that. If we increase the number of trend lines here, we'll start to get history. And that history, any non-active trend line will be at a lower opacity. So I'll make these a little bit brighter here so that you can just see. I'll go with 50% opacity, and I'll go with 10 trend lines here and click apply. And you can kind of see, and you can see the reason why we defaulted to just showing the active trend line is because your chart starts to get a little cluttered up. And this is not that cluttered, but this is technically every single swing high and swing low, swing highs being the color tan, or I'm sorry, the swing lows being the color tan and swing highs being the color blue or cyan. But we can kind of hide those away with the opacity. So you can kind of look at the history. So that's why the opacity is at default 25. So it's kind of hard to see, but it's that way on purpose. And you can come in here and add some more trend lines, get some more history. You can kind of look back in the past and see what trend lines have held up better than others. And you can play with the strength too. So maybe going with a higher strength is going to reduce the number of trend lines. So here's a 20 period strength or even a 50 period strength. So on a 50 period strength, you can see this is the strongest 50 period trend line here. And you can kind of see, you know, that trend line must have had something to it because we had this trend line here, came up, trend line, established the trend line. It would be drawn about this point. We saw it kind of respecting, bouncing around there. And then as soon as it dropped down below, it just kind of fell through the floor. So you can kind of identify these support and resistance of trend lines, and you don't have to do it all by hand. You can let the computer do it, but the computer needs some guidance, and that guidance being the strength value and how many trend lines you want to see. And you can do some other stuff like alerts and stuff like that when the trend lines break. But that's the trend line, automatic trend line indicators. Another thing you can do for automatic is candlestick stuff. So we've got the candlestick pattern here, whereby you can select a list of patterns here that you are interested in. So maybe you want to see bearish engulfing bars, for example, on the chart. If you go ahead and click apply, you can see here it says 2 bearish engulfing patterns found. Looks like I'm going to have to go back in history to see where one is. And here we go. So I'll go ahead and expand the chart a bit, move it over, make it bigger so we can see. And so this candlestick here was identified as bearish engulfing. It got the candlestick color, which is configurable. You can kind of make it stand out a little bit better for you. And you can set up as many candlestick auto detection algorithms as you'd like. Yes, and you can optionally turn off this kind of label text in the bottom right as well. If I go to right-click indicators, candlestick pattern. And again, trend strength as well. Same with trend lines. Not all charts are the same. You're going to need to increase or decrease this based on your periodicity. The only way to do that is just by eyeballing it, taking a look at what you see to be a good pattern, what you would pick out yourself, then starting to mess with the settings to get it to identify as you would do it yourself. Again, it's nothing that can be done automatically because it just is so customized to each individual scenario, and trader for that matter. Anyways, so we can show pattern count, turn that off. That'll turn that text off, clean it up. And there's auto trend line and auto candlestick detection in NinjaTrader 8. All right, let's get into some more technical analysis and market breadth stuff. I don't leave home without it. I almost always have some indices up on my chart at any time on one of my monitors. And these indices are those being defined if you go to Tools, Instruments. You can go search by index. And you can see here, here's a list of various indexes supported through all the NinjaTrader providers. You're going to find that some providers support some of these indexes, some support more than others, and some you have to pay for. So you might have to contact your provider and make sure you're paying a few bucks per month or whatever it's going to be for market data on indexes. In my case, I have market data for a lot of these indexes. And a lot of these are complementary and useful in various ways. And I like to set these up in terms of a market breadth type condition. And what I'll do, I set up two primarily on my charts, which exposes some ways to set them up, which is I'll again go use my plus hotkey, which again, you can either do it this way or just through the chart. Again, this is the way that I do it. It's fastest for me. So I'll go ahead and type plus. I now can add a new series, which I want to add an index. And I'll go ahead and add tick. So tick is the tick index. So tick being the number of positively ticking index or positively ticking instruments over negative ticking instruments. It's kind of a delta. So, and this is calculated on the server and broadcasted out. And there's various ones. You can do the tick Dow Jones, just for stuff in the Dow Jones, just for stuff in the NASDAQ, or just for stuff in the NYSE. So in my case, I'll do tick index. And again, this doesn't necessarily relate to futures, but if you're trading any stock-based future or equity-based future, such as ES, for example, it matters to have it open. Now, what I'll see here is, let me switch here to 5 minute. I'll clean up my chart. Second. So in this case, I'm not getting tick data. And let me try trend here. Must be something with my provider here, since typically this comes in. Usually I don't usually do it after hours. So I am after hours here, and I don't know if that's the aggravating factor. Let me try one more thing. Daily, I want daily, let's go a minute. Tick, bring that across. Must be scale justification, let's see. Data series, scale. Interesting. See. Add this up. Go to indicators. Indicator. I'm sorry, data series. Tick. Add it. 5 minute. 5 days to load. Okay. Yeah, it is the, let's see, the session template. I think I changed that in my own settings. So one thing I got caught up by, so the tick and trend are only active not during the RTH session or the ETH session, but only the RTH session. So if I go into ES here, and I can do this on the chart, actually, I'll just do it on chart. I'm going to double click on my chart, go to ES. There's a trading hours, which is use instrument settings. And mine are going to be set to ETH. Since we're kind of in the ETH hours and I've got my charts crunched up here, I'm going to change my chart. This is one of the use cases for changing the chart, just to show me the RTH bars. So in this case, I want to make sure I only see the data for RTH, which is CME US Index Futures, RTH or ETH. I'm going to go RTH. Again, RTH is regular trading hours, extended trading hours. So ticker trends on the market breadths are only going to be active when the stock market is active, which is RTH hours. So I'll go ahead and select that, click OK. So now we're getting more of the display I was expecting. So we'll expand this up. So tick again, so back on track, tick is advancing issues versus declining issues at that particular moment. And those things are added together and we get either a positive value or a negative value. Tick is interesting. It definitely ebbs and flows. I usually don't use it in a candlestick pattern. I'll go ahead and double click on it and change that to a line on close. Since it's definitely a metric where you're looking for it to kind of, it pulses back and forth and you're looking for those pulses. And I combo that together with a different indicator, which is the plus trend. Okay. And so the trend is the, let me go ahead and, I just missed my plus. So let me go, yes, 12, 20. I'll go plus trend. Okay. So now I've got my multi-series chart. I've got a ES chart, tick chart, which I just configured, and I just added a trend down below. So what I'll do for this is I'll set this to, it could be anything. You can keep it candlesticks if you like. But for me, I go over to the old mountain style. And then I'll combine these up here. And I'll give this one a different color here so it's not the same. So we'll go chart style, mountain. We'll do something like a blue or something, navy. Let's see, navy. Okay. And what I'll do, okay, navy, not a good choice. We'll go with a Dodger blue. That should look better on a dark skin. Okay. And then we'll go with a bar width of 2, make it pop, and go with something else like a red or something. I don't know. So I'll combo these up, throw this down here, kind of resize all my charts here. And this gets into scale justification again. So as you can see, I've got the scale on the left side and the right side. Left side being my tick or my trend, right side being my tick. You can tell by the number. So trend is always going to be a value between, let's say, if it's above 1, it's advancing, or there's more volume coming in. So trend being volume agnostic. So it's volume coming in versus, let's say, upticks versus downticks, which is tick. So tick is kind of volatile, going up and down. Trend is a little bit more, let's say, static. It kind of ebbs and flows with the market, but to a lot lesser degree. So what I do is I come in here and I'll set one to overlay. So I'll double click on it, go to scale justification, overlay. And we'll do the same here. We'll go on this one, we'll go scale, and we'll put this on the right. So now I've set up my chart here to where I've put on the market internals of tick and trend on one of my panels, and I'm saving some screen real estate while still at the same time getting those market internals on my chart. Another common one, which I'll combo, is going to be the advancing issues and declining issues, which is the two separate instruments. They're called they're called U-vol and down volume. So up volume versus down volume of the NIC, for example. So you can do that by doing plus. And if you don't know, you can always search for it. But in my case, I know it's U-vol, which is index, NIC up volume. I'll go ahead and add that, which I added it up top here. And what I can do then as well is add the down volume. So I'll do plus D-vol. Sure. And what I'll do is I'll move this down here. And I'll change this. Add this to my top, resize. And then I've got a combo of stochastics, trend, And then up value and down volume, I'll change those from candlestick to line on close. Up volume, candlestick to line on close. And I'll make the up volume lime green. And I'll make the down volume red. Click OK. All right, so now I'll clean this up a bit. I've got my stochastics, my tick and trend market depth indicators configured. And then I've got an up volume and a down volume, which again, scale justification being important. I could combo these up. So the nice thing about overlay versus left and a right, so with left and the right, I've got my, if I grab this indicator, I can move it over to the right scale. And so now I've got up volume and down volume. And so I can combo these up, or I can look at the differences between them by using an overlay. So I can either have them share, which if one is extremely bigger than the other one, it's going to collapse them. Or I can set them both to overlay, which I'll do really quick. Which, by the way, what I did, I noticed I'm actually looking at, so here's another thing. So I looked at the up volume, and then you can see your D volume. There's no caret in front of here. So what I'm actually looking at, there must be a stock called D volume. So I'm actually not looking at the index. So what I need to do is remove that. So that's why it's such a large gap there. I want to go to select, and I forgot my caret sign, so I want to caret D volume. Click enter. Click OK. There we go. And now we got down volume correctly, and we'll go through, go to the candlestick, change it to line on close like I did before. Make it red because it's all the down volume aggregated together on the NIC. Combine them on the same panel. And now I've got a graph here of up volume versus down volume on the day via our indices. And I can see they're on separate scales here. I can combine them on the same scale. So I'll drag both these over to the right side, which now I just combine them on the same scale. So here we can see here, down volume far exceeded, red line here, far exceeded the green up volume on the day, which makes sense typically in cases where the market ends up down. What becomes useful then, again, from a technical analysis perspective, is using the overlay. So you can go to scale justification here, go to overlay, and we'll do the same thing. So now what you're going to see is they're normalized out. So you're not going to have the gap between them anymore, but you're going to be able to zoom in and see the delta between the two. So it just gives you a way to normalize one over the other and view a difference between the two. So it just lets you kind of put the magnifying glass on and just look at the differences between the two, between the high and the low of that section of chart. So I showed off a few things that I like to do, a few configurations. We talked a bit about indicator on indicator, setting up, comboing various indicators together. We talked about multi-time frame charts and using that hotkey of the plus button to type in the instrument that you're looking for. We talked about different candlestick styles, such as the box style, and how you can layer those time frame, either multiple time frames or multiple instruments on the same panel. We even talked about the market analyzer and how we could set up a stochastics indicator and how we could set up multiple filter conditions to where we only show certain stocks or commodities that match the condition of our condition filter. We talked a bit about our candlestick and trend line detection and how the strength parameter is important to customizing that to be how you would manually draw it yourself, how it is truly not one size fits all. It depends on the time period and the trader as to what makes sense for strength value. And then finally, we talked about market breadth and indice setups, whereby I showed some information about some ways that I set up tick and trend to view them both in the same panel, and up volume and down volume, and how scale justification can be used to show the data in different ways. So I do have a ton more I could go through. I actually have more stuff on my list, but I'm afraid we're just running out of time, and I want to make sure, I'm sure that we're going to have a bunch of questions. And I know Terry wanted to give away some prizes on our 400th webinar. I guess, Terry, do you want to do the kind of Q&A session first, or do you want to do the prizes first?
We'll do the prizes first and then go into Q&A.
Okay, cool.
All right, let's see. Let me get set up here real quick. All right, I'm going to send you the quick question that I have before I start. When you get a second, Brett, just check the chat. I want to verify my answer is correct.
Ah, okay, got it. I didn't miss that, sorry. Okay, looking at it. Yeah, first one's correct.
Perfect. Okay. All right, guys. I'm going to ask a question, and you're going to type the answer into the questions box where you've been asking your questions so far. The first person to get it right, I will grab your name and email, and then that information will be passed on to NinjaTrader, and they will reach out with the prizes. The first question is for the grand prize, the lifetime license. And the question is, what is the first topic covered in today's webinar? All right, have the winner. All right, guys, give me 1 second. I'm going to grab his information. Lots of correct answers on that. Good job, guys. All right, the second question is a bit more broad, and it's for the 1-year license. What is an indicator used in the webinar? All right, winner is grabbed. Thank you, guys. Once I get your information together, I will send you a small quick chat through the webinar so you can confirm that you are a winner.
It's always fun giving out prizes.
Yes. And just to verify, your email used in the webinar will be the email that NinjaTrader will be contacting you with. All right, let me... And then let me get to the second one. Okay, and then we're going to move on to the third question. And it is, what indexes were used in this webinar? Okay, that was fast. There we go. Okay, thank you guys. I got the winner. Okay, let me mark that email down.
And while Terry's taking care of that, I mean, I think now's a good time. You know, if you guys have any questions on anything that we covered, I mean, I got at least a good 20 minutes here just to answer some questions. So please throw in the chat there some questions. And Terry, I don't know if you have to unlock something for me to see it.
Give me 1 second. I will, yes.
Okay, thanks. So just go ahead and start typing any questions, and then we'll make as much progress as we can.
Okay, you should have a panel now for questions that you can pop out and go through.
Yep, got it.
I'm going to work in the middle and clean out the answers to the prizes.
Okay. So looking here. Pop it out. There we go. Now I can see it a little better. And I'll start from the top down. So throw these. There we go. Trying to get the size so I can read the question. Sorry, guys. All right. So I'm not sure I'm understanding the question, but I'm reading anyways. This is from Bill, MCG. Would like several indicators in one zone, but not the scale on the left side to save space. Thank you. So in terms of that, you have to have at least one scale. In terms of whether or not you have a left or a right or an overlay. Let's give this a try though. I don't know that I've ever tried, so let's do it. And let's see what happens. So we'll go to overlay on both these. So I'm going to set no left or right scale. I'm going to do scale justification overlay on both of these. And it looks like even though it's overlay, we still get the price marker on the right-hand side. And we'll try one more thing here. We'll go to price marker. Let's see, where's price marker? Here we go, price marker. So it looks like you do need to have at least a left or a right scale, Bill. If you're trying to get rid of all scales, you at least need to have at least one scale on a chart. Need a name for the template we're in, NTA, please. Need a name for the template we're in from Bullhorn. I suspect you're talking about the idea of if you right-click on the chart, go to templates, save a template being just a, if I configured all these indicators to be this indicator, I give it a name, webinar template, click save, and I've now saved a template, and now if I go to templates, load this template, it'll reload the chart based on all the settings I previously had. I am aware that some users would like to see the actual template name that's selected somehow, some way. And the problem is there's no, let's say, linking back to the template. It's just, think of it as in like loading a disk or loading some data, and then if the template itself underlying changes, it does not change everything linked to that template. Rather, it's a one-time load, and then if you were to delete that template or edit it, it does not impact the settings of the current chart. And since they're not linked, we don't really have a template name. To get around that, you could simply work with the tab names. So you could go and rename and change a template name to to a tab name to a template name, and then use that as your template. I believe that saves as part of the template, and just set the tab as the template name. Thanks for that question. It says here, here's one from Dave 6, how to create alerts that don't get hacked and deleted. Hacked, not sure about hacked, and not sure about deleted. As far as alerts, if you're wanting to do alerts that just stick around, it's best to do that in the market analyzer window, a window that you're going to have open. If you're going to set up an alert inside of the chart, for example, that chart needs to be open for that indicator and thusly that alert to be running on the indicator. So if you change the chart instrument or you close the chart, you'll typically get a warning. You have X alerts running, closing the chart will close the alert, yes or no. So if you want to have a long running alert, your market analyzer is really your home, because you then can keep this running at all times. Go set up the alert, set up whatever conditions you need, and then just keep this guy open, and therefore you'll have those alerts just kind of running broadly across. And you can even go to alerts. Let me check here. Yeah, right. So if you want to have an alert on a specific instrument, maybe you don't want it on one thing. So, or maybe you don't want it across the whole list of things inside the market analyzer. You can simply hit this magnifying glass here and apply it to a single instrument. So if you only want to set up an alert for the ES, you get a price alert. ES is greater than X price. Right click on market analyzer, go alerts, set it to only apply to the ES. You can just type it in or hit the magnifying, and then put the price alert in, and therefore you'll have that alert running. Thanks for that. Does indicator on indicator work for custom indicators or only built-in ones? So yeah, so the infrastructure is all set up. All the indicators built inside the system are built using the same infrastructure that all the custom indicators have access to. So it's all the same framework, all the same core, and everything can be reused with custom indicators. So you absolutely can do that. Thanks for that question. Something just says volume chart, but I don't really see the question. Can I switch to a custom bar type? So obviously you can switch to a custom bar type by a couple of ways. One of those, however, you cannot do that through the hotkey function. We did not specify when we were developing the product to have we did not have the foresight to think about the hotkeys and being able, you'd have to define a certain number of characters which would work only with your key with your bar type and does not collide with others. So we kind of had to have like a register system. If one custom bar type wanted to be Unirenko or something, or whatever bar type, you know, and it was UR was what you type in to get it. We had to make sure another bar type does not, let's say, try to go over the top of that. So we did not do that for the hotkey. We're definitely open to feedback there. We'd have to do something to where we solve that problem. But what you can do is in the interval selector, you can make it easier for you. There's a configure button in the interval selector across the top, where when you select that, you'll see all your bar types here, including any custom ones here. And you can select custom bar types here and set a custom interval. And that way, when you just come down here and select this, you'll have it right on the menu. That'll get you some pretty quick access as well. Question here from DinoWeb, is there a way to show relative performance? So relative performance is just using, at least visually on the chart, is just using that scale justification of overlay. So you want to use the overlay mode. And you get that by just double clicking on the bars, going to scale justification down here and selecting overlay. That'll show you a relative. Thanks for that. Moving on to the next question from Square One. Can you do a 5-minute and a Unirenko 461 set? So the answer is yes. You can set up any combination, but you do have to you're getting into some complex intervals. And so how it works, and I'll try to do the kind of explain like I'm 5 version, is on the chart, the bars, there's a bar slot per bar. And when you combo bars together, you have to make room for those bars. And we have 2 modes. One's called equidistant bar spacing and one's called non-equidistant bar spacing. Equidistant simply meaning that we have a number of slots here and each slot is right in the middle between each other bar. So every single one of these bars is evenly spaced between every single one and it's nicely lined up. So if let me move my questions out of the way here. And also let me see how many more questions we've got. Okay, which I'll try to pick up the pace here since we still have some questions. But let me do this here. So I've got a 5-minute ES here. And let me go ahead and clean this up. Just hitting the delete key and selecting. So I've got equidistant bar spacing on. So now if I go plus 10 minute, add a 10-minute chart here, you'll see that all the bars are still equidistant. So these bars are all equally distant, and there's kind of enough space in here to fit another 5-minute bar. And that's because there's 2 5-minute bars in the same space. And if I kind of drag this above here, I'm going to drag it to the left axis here. And I'm going to kind of make them smaller, and I'm going to drag them down here. So you can kind of see how I've got, for every one 10-minute bar, I've got exactly 2 slots here for 5-minute bars. So these bars overlap each other. So if I drag them on the same panel, you'll see that a bar slot is maintained for each one. So if I want to go to the 10-minute bar and just make it easier to see, make it like a brown, I don't know, I'm just picking a color here just to make it easier. You can see here that, you know, for every 2 bars, I've got 1 brown bar and it's layered on the same bar as that 5-minute bar. Now, this is possible with bar types which are evenly divisible. So a 5-minute and a 10-minute, a 10-minute and a 20-minute. However, when you start to get outside of that range, you start to get into where we have to kind of make space for that. And you can see that if I go ahead and change this 10-minute. Now let's make it a, let's make it a 14-minute, for example. So now they're no longer evenly divisible. And now if I kind of show this here, let me go back to the front here. We'll see. Yeah, right. You'll see now that's on the bars whereby they ended at the same timestamp, I got an overlapping bar. So here's a brown bar overlapped on a red bar. On the times where they can't, now I just have a brown bar on itself. So they are still all layered here. When they can match, they do match. But for the most part, with 14-minute bar, they don't match. You can see very rarely do they match. Here's another match here. So that's equidistant bar spacing. There is another mode, which let me bring this bar down so we have 2 bars here. And you can kind of see that effect here as well. You can see how there's a gap here where this bar would fill in if it was up here. Then if you go to properties on the chart, go to equidistant bar spacing, you can turn that off. This puts you into the second mode of which you can do multi-series. I don't recommend you ever get into this unless you have to. This was the way NT7 used to work. It was this off when you had multi-series. But with NT8, we were able to find a way to make it working in most cases, whereby you play nice and you have bars that are evenly divisible. It's going to usually look nice and match up nicely. But if you don't do that, you can do it equidistant bar spacing. You can turn that off. And it's now that's going to fix that problem in this sample. But now my bars are based off of time only. So what that means is a good example of this would be if I change this to a 144 chart. change this one as well to a 233 tick chart. Oops. Hit the enter button if you want to. Go tick. 288. Just play nice, so you'll see the problem. So we'll see here, if I zoom in, you'll see all these bars are just kind of placed on there. And it's because every 144 ticks happens at different time intervals. That's the point of tick bars. So if the bars are closer together, that means that the time between the two bars is less. If the bars are farther apart, it meant that these two bars took longer. It just means that everything's statically spaced based on time only, and then you result in these overlapping bars, which, let's say you don't want all these bars to kind of look like this, then you can go to the data series or go to the properties, turn on equidistant bar spacing, and now everything will be nicely equidistant. And if everything's evenly divisible, then it's going to be even more pleasingly equidistant. That's something that we had added in NinjaTrader 8. So I went in a little bit more detail there, but I thought it was important. I thought maybe others would benefit from learning about equidistant bar spacing. Market Analyzer, can I filter stochastics for ES, 5 minute, 10 minute, 13? Yeah, absolutely. So you just keep adding more columns for every, so you add a stochastics for the 5 minute column, for the 10 minute column, for the 13 minute column. So you just keep adding stochastics columns, set them for each different one, and you can set up a filter condition on each one. Okay, this is from Short Creeker. Is it possible in NinjaTrader to add a plot ratio or spread of two instruments, like the price of ES per ZB? Not currently, Short Creeker. It's on the list for me to look into, but that's like a spread instrument or a dynamic instrument, which we just don't have support for right now, unfortunately. Can the candlestick pattern be used in the market analyzer? Candlestick patterns are a chart-only thing. Is there a put-call ratio? Yes, there is. It's another indice. In Tools, Instruments, go to Indexes. I think if I just search here for put-call, so I just put in put, yeah, there it is. So it's called PCR, or put-call ratio. So you can add that to your chart and get the put-call ratio. Okay. Let's see, just seeing a bunch of things. A bunch of question answers. Let's see, how do you set a daily MACD on a 5 minute chart? Daily MACD on a 5 minute chart. This is from Crossover. So in this case, let me reset this guy. Yes, we'll go to a daily MACD on a 5 minute chart. So let's make this a 5 minute chart. What I'll do is I'll go plus 1 day to bring in the data. So now I've got a daily chart and a 5 minute chart here. So I've got one daily bar and then a bunch of 5 minute bars. And then what I'll do is I'll right click, go to indicators. I will add my MACD. There we go. I will change the input series from the 5 minute to the daily. Click OK. I've now got my daily MACD. And now, and daily MACD, correct, which I will change it to calculate on each tick so I get a value for the last bar there. Okay, and then let's say you could leave it like that, but I suppose you don't want these bars here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the bars up to this top panel here. So now I've got a MACD running on these daily bars, but these daily bars I don't want. So I'm going to go to line on close. I'm going to set the color to transparent. And so now I've got a MACD running on daily per the tooltip here, and on a 5 minute bar with daily series just in the background. and I have them set to transparent. Great question, Crossover. I'm glad you asked it. Can we create a custom index? This is from Boilermaker. This is the same concept as another question, which was kind of a dynamic instrument. You can do it through NinjaScript, but as far as an easy feature to create a custom index, we don't have any kind of UI support for that. Any way to share a template or email the XML? This is with Dances with Bears. Yeah, absolutely. It's all located in the My Documents folder under the templates directory. So you can copy and share it. The problem is a lot of templates usually have some custom indicators and things like that, of which you need to export those as well. If you're just using all the system indicators, then of course you can do that. But if you're using custom third-party indicators, as another person loads that template up on another machine, it's going to throw some errors to the log saying it can't find indicator XYZ since it's not installed. So you have to also replicate the indicators, which there's various ways to do that. There's, depending on, we're talking, is this another machine that you control, or is this your own machine? Depends on how you might want to do that. In which case, please contact us at Platform Support to get some customized information. Do you have any minimum recommendations for the video card needed? Let me check. Pull this up. Let's see. I'm just checking our help guide really fast to see what the minimum requirements are. I think it's just configuration. Minimum system requirements is, it just says a DirectX 10 compatible graphics card. So DirectX 10 compatible graphics card is all that's really needed. Okay, this is from Perpetua. As a Canadian, can I connect to IB as futures brokerage while trading on charts? Connected to data provider that uses tick data? Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's just a platform feature whereby you can customize where your data is coming from. You can connect to a brokerage account just to load your account for trading, and then connect to your data account just to use for your data. And how you would do that is, if you want to do it reliably, what I would do is go to Tools, Options, go to Market Data, Preferred Connection for historical and real time here. Just do real time. You can do it per instrument type. And let's say you were doing futures, for example, you can select here and then select which one you want to be your live data from always. So that way it's not going to use interactive brokers, you can use something else. Which is pretty common since interactive brokers is sometimes historical data is just slow to load and stuff like that. So I do see a lot of customers doing that. One of the questions from Boilermaker: can we place an indicator on one time frame against price action in another time frame? I think I just kind of showed that with the daily example here, so I think I kind of answered that. And then there's a bunch of stuff in here for the giveaway, which let me scroll past that and see what other questions we got here. Let's see. I'm just going to have to custom pick some questions here if I don't get to your comment. I apologize. Please send. Okay. How would I get more info on using the platform? Is there a one-on-one contact with someone? This is from Kahuna Nui. Yeah, so we've got a great webinar staff. We got a great website with a bunch of details. We've got live webinars. We've got a bunch of YouTube videos. And if you needed some help with some setup or something like that, you could contact us at platformsupport@ninjatrader.com, and they'll be able to answer any questions you have. So, okay. Is there a WordPad to use as a journal from Wyckoff? There actually is. I don't personally use it myself, but it is there. It's under New Trade Performance. as you do a trade performance. This is basically the window that looks up all executions orders in the database and generates your trade performance. One of those panels is going to be journal, of which case is just a text document of which you can add journal information per day. Thanks for that, Wyckoff. Is tick data free or payable to broker? I have Rhythmic. So it depends on your provider. You just have to ask the provider. Platformsupport@NinjaTrader.com can help you navigate that. Okay. Question. How to optimize chart viewing when we're adding multiple indicators on the main chart, or when you're adding footprint. How to optimize chart viewing when you are adding multiple indicators on main chart, or when you're adding footprint. I guess I don't know what you're looking to optimize, OSR trader. I apologize. Sorry about that. Can you discuss a use case for displacement? This is from PruTrader. Yeah, so displacement's another one that you can use. I don't use it too often. It's usually used more often in combination with a third party. I don't know of too many use cases with the default indicators, because basically displacement, all we're doing with displacement is, so if I add the simple moving average, there's a displacement value of which is 0. This can be a negative value or a positive value. Positive pushes it out into the future. So let's say if I wanted to do a 200 period moving average, just click apply. This is what it's going to look like as is. Now, if I want to push this up into the future, I can go to displacement. I can go, and this is number of bars. So let's say I wanted to go, 100 bars into the future, click OK. Click OK, scroll my chart back here. And in this case, I actually need to go to the use instrument settings here. Properties, distant, great. And it's the trading hour template I need to do. Oops, data series. Take that off for now. Take this off. Take you off. Data series, take you off. Simplify. Okay. So here in this case, if I pull my chart forward here, I've now just taken whatever value was at this bar, which if I zoom in here to make it easier to see, whatever value was at this bar, I pushed it forward. How many did I say? Double click on the indicator, 100 bars. So in a sense, it kind of makes any indicator into a leading indicator. That's not a true statement, just a funny statement, but it turns anything up into the future. Now, what I see it used for is in the NinjaTrader ecosystem. There are vendors that take advantage of this. One that I can think off the top of my head, there's one called Ichimoku Cloud, which on purpose takes some plot and displaces it into the future for some probabilities and things like that. So the use case for displacement, although it doesn't, just because I don't know of one that I typically have seen used with our system indicators, doesn't mean there isn't one, but it's typically used more with third parties that on purpose are coded to be displaced into the future. At least that's my experience. Great question, thanks.
All right, Brett, we're getting close to the hard time limit.
Okay, thanks for that, Terry. So it looks like I'm just seeing a bunch of thankses here and stuff. I'm getting a few other questions, which I'm just trying to see if there's any more that I can get to really quickly. Yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much covers it. I mean, there was a couple questions I didn't get to. We are still available to answer questions. I'm just running out of time. Platform support at NinjaTrader.com will get you over to our support desk. We're really proud about our support team. We always brag about it. They're always giving away pretty fast responses during the day. Usually it's like 5 minutes, 15 minutes at the worst to get some response. and some guidance. So we're really proud of our support team. And I want to thank everybody for joining. I hope some people took some info away from it. I'm always happy to come into the webinar room, especially for the 400th webinar, and give away some prizes. And I wish everybody has a good rest of the day. Terry, did you have anything else for me? Otherwise, I think we're all done.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for the webinar, the information, and for spending some time with us this evening. And I'd also like to just give a shout out to NinjaTrader for the prizes. Thank you, and NinjaTrader will be contacting the winners after the event.
All right, sounds good. And congratulations to the winners. You'll hear who you are.